You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey, good morning. It is 7:06. Nice to have you here up north on this Tuesday morning, June 24th. 2025, Brittany Merlot coming up, Parker Olson over in Madison Studio A2, and coming up this hour, Corinne Hendrickson from New Glarus, a childcare provider who has been leading the fight to build public awareness of the crisis of affordable childcare here in Wisconsin, to the point where Governor Evers has also been a strong ally and is now drawing a red line when it comes to the state budget in terms of support for child care providers as a way to help working parents and the economy and the labor shortage and all of that and more, all coming up. Then in our 8 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Chad Holmes from 98.9 WXCO in Wausau, and we'll visit with Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area and Civic Media Politics editor. We'll have some of the other day's news stories to pass along, including Wisconsin connections to the big bloated boondoggle of a budget bill that Trump and Republicans are working on out in Washington, D.C., the impact that is being felt here with layoffs at Wisconsin Public Radio, and Senator Ron Johnson saying, well, we may be going to war with Iran, but that just has me even more driven to cut Medicaid. So we've got those stories and more coming up along the way here. Let's see. First off, I've got, from Alicia. Oh, just wants to do the introduction. The one, the only, Brittany Merlot. Well, there she is, as introduced by Alicia on YouTube. Brittany, good morning. How are you?
Thank you, Alicia. I'm pretty good this morning. How are you guys doing?
We're good here. I talked about how it's glorious to have the window open. It's just great. It is, 64 here now in Chippewa Falls. However, I am reminded by Dave in New Berlin on the text line, good morning, Pat. The front hasn't made it to my area yet. It's partly cloudy and 76 in New Berlin, 74 at work in Milwaukee. But I assume it's coming statewide that everybody's going to get some relief from the heat?
We're trying. By tomorrow, I think the entire state's going to have some relief, but that front is just draped right now. It's kind of sitting from La Crosse, Toma, all the way to about Green Bay and into the Fox Valley, and areas from there and south. You're looking at chances of more scattered showers and storms sparking up again by midday and becoming widespread as we go into tomorrow, as this front wants to lift more north, bringing heavier rain rates further north by tomorrow. So what we've got going on today, still dealing with some damage in central Wisconsin and into the Fox Valley this morning. Winds yesterday gusted from 50 to 70 miles per hour. It ripped trees down, covering roads, onto cars. It even, heavy rainfall kind of made some roofs fall into Madison area too. So we saw anything from 1.5 inches to 3.5 inches of rain in Toma, 2.5 into Madison. So still trying to dry things out with more rain on the way. So potential for more flash flooding as we go through this afternoon and evening, especially south where that front is still sitting and along the state line. Some of these storms are going to be strong, but they shouldn't be so severe. Yesterday was probably the worst of it, but we do still have a little bit of a risk as we go through today. Now, in terms of rainfall rates, I think a good 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch will be in these storms. Some places could get hit heavy again with another inch or two, especially west and especially south. Otherwise, today highs will hit the mid-70s, pretty much statewide, low 80s far south, and then that relief tomorrow, mid-50s to mid-70s.
Wow, and those derecho straight line winds in North Dakota and northern Minnesota. I was looking at video from Bemidji, Minnesota, and the number of trees down is just staggering. What that system had done. Rob says, good morning from Tigerton. It's cloudy and 69. Yesterday, Tigerton had a high of 90 degrees for a third straight 90-degree day before the storms came in the afternoon. Yesterday, I got 4 mowing jobs done in Tigerton before the thunder and lightning. I want to thank my mechanic, Todd, for getting my truck fixed. He said Tigerton had only 0.2 of an inch of rain, missed the really bad storms. A semi-truck was blown over on Highway 10 near Amherst. Power lines were down by Lake Collins Park near Amherst. And thank you, Brittany, for always keeping us up to date on the weather and the local news in central Wisconsin from an award-winning news anchor and reporter. And Tony reports that, hey, up in Ashland, it's chilly there too, 59 degrees. And Alicia, it looks grumpy outside, but it is so nice and cool. And that's a good way of putting it. It did. The sky did look a little grumpy a little earlier here, you know?
Yes. I'm going to have to use that all day. Thank you, Alicia.
The sky is grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's a Stevie Ray Vaughan song that starts "The Sky is Crying." We got to get a new version. "The Sky is Grumpy" with
Yes.
Brittany Merlot. All right, we will look forward to that. Thank you, Brittany. We'll get an update next hour.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, along the way, as some of the other folks have been doing, you can jump onto social media and you can join us that way. Follow us on social media on the Facebook and YouTube pages for Up North News or for Civic Media. And you can follow me on social media as well. I've got a Facebook page that's called Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. So just go to facebook.com/Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. And you can also follow me at Pat Kreitlow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. But again, you can text us through the Civic Media app as well. And when we've got those phones ready to rock and roll again with the remodeling being done in Madison Studio A2, we'll get that up and going for you as well. But in the meantime, I mean, Parker stands by in Madison A2 to look at your voice notes, listen to your voice notes. You can do those through the Civic Media app as well. As we learned last week when Tony put his kids up there and we could, hear directly from people that wanted to make intros. Well, look, you had Alicia there on YouTube saying, the one, the only, Brittany Merlot. I feel like people should get on those voice notes and just make generic introductions. I just want to hear you going, and now here's Brittany Merlot with the weather or something along those lines. Yeah.
That brings some more life to the show, Pat. I like that.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that I'm really tired still, Pat. I'm sorry. It's not you, it's me.
Bringing more life to the show, I'm sure, is what you meant. Absolutely. Yes. So, again, use that voice note feature on the Civic Media app and send us letters or sometimes send us encouragement and notes to wake up, if you will. All right. Also, Up North News has newsletters 7 days a week now, our Monday through Friday edition with news and features, a Saturday sports edition, a Sunday politics edition that I put together in all cases. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com to learn more and get signed up for 1, 2, or all 3 of those newsletters. A lot of things happening with Civic Media today. We've got on the Todd Alba Show this afternoon, Alex Madorsky of the Nature Conservancy talking about the Nelson Knolls Stewardship Update. We talked about that before where, the stewardship program puts land into conservation so that, we don't end up someday like other places that are thoroughly overdeveloped and nobody says, hey, did we not think at some point not to overbuild, to set some stuff aside? But, of course, we have Republicans in the legislature who have said, no, we've conserved enough land. We don't need to do anything more than that. Some folks are trying to find a nice middle ground between the parties, and we may be at that point. So listen to Todd's show later this afternoon to find out more about that. You can also get local news updates on the web because besides having a newsroom with statewide reach, just like us at Up North News, our friends at Civic Media have you covered with local news updates that you can get from each individual station. You go to civicmedia.us, and then from there, find your local Civic Media radio station, or a local Civic Media station, if you will. And then when you go to that local station's page, you'll see something called Daily News Roundup that you can listen to right there. You can also sign up for email versions of their daily update while you're there as well. So head over to civicmedia.us to learn more. Tony on YouTube. But what if we tried overbuilding and mined the state and the national lands? I think Tom Tiffany is testing that out. Yes, I believe he is. And if you needed no other reason to be supportive of stewardship and land conservation, let me just remind you that again, Tom Tiffany is still a member of Congress. So you might want to try to keep northern Wisconsin as northern Wisconsin. In Washington, D.C., you've got Republicans considering Donald Trump's big bloated boondoggle of a budget bill, which we've talked extensively about the potential cuts to Medicaid and other vital programs, but the reductions in federal spending are impacting folks in many different ways. For example, support for public radio and TV. You know, the thing that makes sure that it's not just corporations that get to determine what our news and entertainment will be. But Wisconsin Public Radio announced, according to an article by Henry Redmond in the Wisconsin Examiner, that it is laying off at least 15 staff members and canceling 4 radio programs as the station faces budget shortages and the looming prospect of cuts to federal funding. The canceled programs included the nationally syndicated To the Best of Our Knowledge, the arts and culture show Beta, the health show Zorba Pastor on Your Health, and the local University of the Air. Republicans have been considering a proposal to rescind money previously allocated to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which distributes those federal funds to local stations across the country. Earlier this month, the House of Representatives voted to take $1.1 billion away from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the Senate has until mid-July to pass its own version of the provision. About 4% of Wisconsin Public Radio's budget comes from federal funds through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. For the rest of that story by Henry Redmond, head over to wisconsinexaminer.com. Now, there are all kinds of ways that the budget debate and the war with Iran are making headlines. It's not often that people would necessarily conflate the two, but leave it to Ron Johnson to do so. Johnson saying that the prospect of war with Iran, according to a story in the website Raw Story, makes him just that much more determined to cut Medicaid. The actual headline from Raw Story, Ron Johnson, Iran strike strengthens my resolve to pass a bill cutting Medicaid. Talking to one of his favorite media mouthpieces, Maria Bartiromo, he talked about how dedicated he is to passing something that could strip health care away from more than 10 million Americans. Bartiromo said, "Does this change anything for you, knowing that we are now looking at a world where our adversaries are on the march?" Bartiromo said, talking about Iran. Johnson said, "No, if anything, it just strengthens my resolve. I mean, how do we expect to defend this nation if we're mortgaging its future, if we're bankrupting it?" Okay, the thing to keep in mind there is that, again, Ron Johnson does not actually care about the deficit and bankrupting the nation, or he would have been a no vote for the 2017 tax bill, the one that blew a $2 trillion hole in the budget. And he's now supporting something. Well, he's not supporting this bill yet because it may put another $3 to $4 trillion into the deficit. But he was willing to change his mind 8 years ago. He may be willing to do so again. This isn't about saving the nation from bankruptcy. It's about cutting tens of millions of people off the access to their health care because he believes that, again, corporations should be making those decisions for you, setting the prices that you pay, the choices that you get, the legal rights that you have, the things that you can watch on TV and radio, and that there are enough benevolent billionaires out there that you should just trust the business world to make all of these choices for you, especially something like, the healthcare that could save your life. A local update is next for some of you. The rest will be back here at 7:30, where we'll talk to Corinne Hendrickson about Governor Evers and childcare next. You're Up North.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
The Brewers lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates last night 5-4. Christian Yelich had a game-tying home run in the 5th inning, but the Pirates got a go-ahead triple in the 6th and hung on. In the past 7 games, Christian Yelich is 16 for 30, 14 runs batted in. So, I mean, he's just been on a tear lately. Freddie Peralta will take the mound tonight for Game 2 of the Brewers series with the Pirates. 6:05 the pregame on stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, and Hayward. And again, then there's the game Wednesday afternoon. Jacob Mizorowski taking the mound against Pittsburgh's Paul Skeens. That's going to be a great game. I mean, Dan Hagen would drive down from Rhinelander to see that game tomorrow afternoon if he could. He can't because he's a very dedicated Newswatch 12 employee up there in Rhinelander. But if he could get away,
I think I'm coming down with an illness, Pat.
you
I
do.
might
You
as
don't
well
sound
take the
good.
day.
You don't look good at all.
Right. Well, that's too far, Pat.
I
As
see.
a former news anchor, that's bridge too far.
No. The hair and face look fabulous as always. But anyway, how are you?
I'm doing well. You know, that will be a great game tomorrow. This Mizorowski guy is a phenom. He
Isn't
set
he,
some
though?
sort of record, right, with his first 2 starts.
Yep. I mean, when you start your career, your major league career with 11 no-hit innings,
Right.
that's all right.
That's okay.
More
More wins than hits.
than
Yeah.
hits.
2
It's
wins,
just mind-blowing.
1 hit allowed in these 2 starts. Just crazy. So I'm really hoping tomorrow lives up to the billing because it would be so exciting to watch if it does. So
Well, Pat, speaking of baseball, okay, I got a great story for you today.
okay. All right.
Unfortunately, we're going to dial down the skill level to approximately 0
Okay.
because I was involved with a game yesterday. So, if you're not familiar, there is a phenomenon in a small town called Lake Tomahawk every summer, and it began for the season yesterday. It's called snowshoe baseball. So, yes, the players are wearing snowshoes. It really involves more of a softball than a baseball. But people are running around playing softball more or less in snowshoes. A lot of falls, a lot of waking up with wood chips in between your teeth.
Sorry, which orthopedist is sponsoring this thing?
Right. You know, there's probably a few injuries. A lot of people who shouldn't be doing that sort of
Oh,
sport
my.
are playing it. But it's an absolute blast every single year, and I recommend anyone to check it out.
And so you've been playing this.
Right. So this is an annual tradition that Newswatch 12 kicks off the season with the Lake Tomahawk Snowhawks. And they're going to be playing every Monday throughout the summer at 7:30 p.m. But if you want to get a pie, this is, you know, some people go just for the pie. If you want to get a pie, you got to get there early because the pie will quickly sell out. There's pies from all of the local civic organizations. And this place is famous for its pie and its baseball.
Well, how cool is this? I mean, I would never have thought to combine those things. I feel like the guy that, the first time you saw Reese's, wait, you combine peanut butter with chocolate? Are you kidding me? Snowshoes and baseball. All right.
Yeah,
Good
it's
deal.
an absolute blast.
All right. How did you beat the heat over the weekend? Were you making the most of it outside? Were you hiding inside in the AC?
You know, I saw a lot of people outside at lakes. So I think humanity is healing, nature is healing. We're getting back to what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the local lakes were packed. A lot of kids enjoying the water. There's always that one guy who's just sitting in a lawn chair, doesn't move for hours. I don't know how his skin is still onto his body, but
SPF 2000 will do that for you, I guess. It's
yeah, perhaps.
or it's just all leather at this point, and it doesn't matter. So,
And
I don't know.
then also, God bless the world for air conditioning. Those are the
Yes.
2 ways I beat the heat.
Oh, I know. I've got a friend who is staying at a place temporarily that does not have air conditioning, and he was talking about having like 2 fans blowing, overnight to try to keep cool. But I reminded him that, and again, this is not necessarily an old man thing, but I mean, air conditioning has only been like, shall we say, ubiquitous for not that terribly long. I'm old enough to remember when at best you had one little wall unit for your entire house, and we had a lot of fans, and that was half the fun as a kid growing up with a lot of fans because you could talk into the fan like this, and
Yeah. Well, I was
but
just gonna say, people are so. I like when people say like, "Oh, it was way back It was way better back then. We need to
Well, I'm not going to
replay
say
that.
better, no, but different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of great things about many years ago. Like, oh, I wish I was a frontiersman. You didn't have air conditioning then. You're probably
Yes.
going to die at 4. So maybe think about that one a little bit,
A little
a little more.
dysentery on the Oregon Trail there.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
exactly. What I always say is that if your great great grandmother, churning butter outside that sod house of hers, if you'd have given her a microwave oven, she'd have used it. She
Right.
wouldn't be like, "Oh no, I don't need that." She would have loved having a refrigerator. So, it's just a reminder to appreciate our little modern conveniences, like air conditioning.
Absolutely. And have you heard of the phrase like survivor bias? Like the
No.
reason why it seems somewhat great is, most people didn't make it out of childhood and probably until the at least the 20th century. So
Yeah.
um we got it pretty good right now is all I'm trying to say.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Also on the text line here, Jim from Brookfield says, my family saw the snowshoe baseball game in Lake Tomahawk in 2021. We enjoyed the pie. The game was a hoot. My daughters laughed the entire game. And I mean,
That's
look at that. You're making memories that are still around all these years later.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one person called me a clown yesterday because, we just kind of try some antics. I'm often more chatting with the people on the stands and actually playing. I borrowed
That's okay.
someone's lawn chair to go into right field because no one can hit it into right field, unless there's a
Exactly.
lefty up. So yeah, there are a lot of kids and family there, so
And
good family fun.
all right. So you're doing it again next Monday.
Okay, so here's the plan: is
Okay. You
the
got 10 seconds to
Snowhawks
tell me.
the Snowhawks play every Monday. Newswatch 12 only plays the first Monday.
Gotcha. Okay. But fun stuff to see up in that area. Dan Hagan from
Absolutely.
WJFW and Rhinelander. Thank you, sir.
Of
Talk to you
course, see you
later.
guys.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk childcare with Corinne Hendrickson, and then later, Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area. Thank you for spending some time here as part of your mornings, powered by Up North News. More live from Chippewa Falls after the Midwest Farm Report here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Tomorrow on the program, it's our Wednesday series of visits with all kinds of Civic Media friends. Earl Ingram in Milwaukee, Todd Alba in Madison. There's Melissa Kay in Wisconsin Rapids, James Kelly in Chippewa Falls, all scattered throughout the show on your Wednesday mornings, powered by Up North News here on the Civic Media Radio Network, where at 7:35, we're going to be visiting with Corinne Hendrickson in just a moment, a child care provider from the New Glarus area, about what to me was surprising news. And that was Governor Evers essentially drawing the first red line of the state budget cycle, saying that if the state budget bill that Republicans in the legislature sent him does not contain funding for the Child Care Counts program, he ain't signing the budget. There's a lot that they can send him that he can fix with his partial veto powers, but you can't fix zero. And so he wants to make sure that Republicans in the legislature take this issue seriously. He gets it. More people in the legislature, more people out in the general public get it because of the work of so many providers and their allies and folks like Corinne Hendrickson, who joins us now from New Glarus. Corinne, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am actually feeling optimistic for once.
I understand that. Were you
So
as surprised as I was to hear the language from the governor?
I was hoping for it. We kind of thought that maybe that was what was happening last week when the Joint Finance Committee did not meet on Thursday because Ag and Department of Corrections didn't seem like they would be the problem. It would be us, and that we heard that they walked away the night before, the Republicans walked away. So we were cautiously optimistic that it was us that was the sticking point, but then to have that confirmed yesterday was pretty amazing because childcare has fought really hard and long to be respected, and we are seen normally as less than and seen as babysitters. And we went from not even being part of a conversation 6-7 years ago during campaigns and things to like now the governor is going to veto if we don't get funded. It's amazing.
It really is. It's tremendous recognition of how Child Care Counts has worked in Wisconsin. So, and I apologize if we've got a bit of a weak connection, but we are hearing you just fine on this. I know that last week when Joint Finance canceled, I saw photos of childcare providers who had gone to the Capitol and were standing outside this closed room because the meeting had been canceled. But it just spoke to the dedication of providers and parents and allies willing to go to the Capitol time after time after time to make their case. It really shows how passionate and how necessary this issue is for a lot of families.
Oh, definitely. And we thank our allies and we stand strong with our allies. We are really pushing for that 60% some sufficient for K 12 because honestly, what's happening because the schools are underfunded for special education, when we notice that a child has something going on and maybe needs some extra support and we call the school, it's really hard to get them that support in the program at our place. It's also if we don't have people who know what they're doing and educators, the teachers don't know how to support kids or how to refer kids because of the turnover, then they don't get what they need either. And these kids, then we end up expelling them. We're struggling to keep them in our programs, and they are not getting the support they need till they're 5, 6, 7, or 8, which costs all of us even that much more.
In the Republican caucus, it seems, and I don't want to get too in the weeds about political things like this, but you do have in that caucus, you have what I guess you would call social conservatives, who frankly would rather a parent, usually the mom, stay home. And then you also have a Republican caucus made up of what are very much your pro-business types who clearly understand the importance of a healthy childcare sector to the economy overall. So as they discuss among themselves, do you feel like progress is being made with people who maybe consider themselves conservatives, but they understand, the economic aspect of this problem?
Yeah, I think there is that weird, like, we support small businesses, but yet you're going to shut down 1,000 small businesses in our state by not funding childcare. They talk about not wanting to, have handouts for people or businesses, but yet we have handouts for agribusiness manufacturers, pretty much every single industry that exists besides childcare. We don't want to give money to people, but then Voss says we want to give money directly to parents. And so they're just full of contradictions. And I think they're trying, to my opinion, I think they're trying really hard to justify it to themselves. Honestly, their decisions.
Well, look, whatever justifies supporting it, however they get there, would be helpful because, again, Governor Evers wanted $480 million into child care accounts. And we don't know what ultimately is going to happen from this, but we know that some people were at zero because they were trying, like you said, they were trying different kinds of, tax credits and things like that. And I know we've covered this previously, but these tax credits, which seems to be the only tool that some conservatives know, they just don't work. They're just not. They're too convoluted for parents and for parents to use, much less providers, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Tax credits. I had to laugh when I looked at the Joint Finance Committee and their tax cuts and how it's going to save the average family $259 a year. That's less than a week of childcare. So, tax credits don't work. And they don't work because, first off, they're not actually increasing revenue for our programs. They're not able to give us the ability to pay people better. And they don't, once a year, getting back a little tiny amount off your taxes isn't going to do anything. And, it kind of goes along with that same hope of, you give money to, and it trickles down to other people. Well, that doesn't work. Tax credits have always been sort of a neoliberal way to compromise. And we've tried it for 40 years. It's not working. Let's do something new.
And one of the things that has also been suggested on the Republican side of things is, again, they love tax credits and they love talking about deregulation. But deregulation in terms of, we'll just expand class sizes or we'll reduce some of the requirements, the quote unquote, the red tape for providers. Again, those did not exactly seem popular when they were first proposed because they not only don't get at the heart of the problem, it almost sounds like they'd make some of these problems worse.
Oh, absolutely would make things worse. We can't find teachers. We can't keep family childcare because the workload is too heavy and too hard for such a small amount of pay, $13 an hour. And you're telling me I don't earn that I need to take on 5 or 6 babies in order to earn my $13 an hour? You're just going to increase burnout. You're also going to hurt those kids' development. If we want a strong society, if we want kids who are ready to go into the world when they turn 18 and become military or, next business owners or work for, a wide variety of different people, we need kids who are actually intelligent and can use their brains and critically think. And when you put too many in a classroom with a teacher who cannot meet their needs, you're going to do the opposite, and you're going to cost us that much more as time goes on.
Got on the text line from Tim in Wales talking about part of the reason Child Care Counts works is that the assistance is given to the child care provider, which is a good reminder for me to take a step back for folks on the Child Care Counts program itself. How does it work? It was funded by federal pandemic aid. The governor now wants, instead state funds to go into child care counts. So that's what would change about the money coming in the door. How does the money go out the door from child care counts? How does it work?
Yeah, so what happens is actually, this is the third go around in the budget that the governor has tried to put state money in order to directly fund childcare so we can pay our employees better and family childcare stay open. And so every single program that's regulated in the state is actually able to apply every single month, and we receive an amount for our operational costs and we receive an amount for our per child. And it's based on our quality rating indicator scale. So if we participate in Youngstar, and it's based on the number of children, their ages, we do get more for younger children and our teachers, full-time or part-time. And every single month we get that money, and then we're able to offset the cost to our parents for tuition. For example, most of us are sending out letters to our parents right now telling them that as of August 1st or September 1st, when this funding is gone, our rates are going to go up because we need to offset that loss of revenue. And we're doing that to help ourselves so that parents have a way of understanding what's going on, but then also to help educate the Republicans who consistently are saying and accusing us of pocketing this money and not using it to offset those costs for parents. So that if, let's say in October or November, they decide to actually do something for childcare and put investment in, then we can reduce that tuition back down as well. So, it's really one of those things that they just keep basically lying about us and accusing us of doing underhanded things. And it makes me wonder why they would assume that about other people.
So now we wait to see what they do in terms of putting something into the budget that they would eventually send to Governor Evers. And again, the governor bringing this up indicates to a lot of folks that negotiations are going on and that Republicans are coming off of the number 0 for going into child care counts. But that still leaves a lot of room for Republicans to put not $0 in there, but not nearly enough as well to maintain the program. So when we hint at the potential for progress in negotiations, that's no reason to let off the gas in terms of trying to persuade legislators about the value of it, right?
Oh, absolutely not. We told everyone it's working. This tells us that what we're doing, the pressure that we're giving is working, because for the Republicans to walk away from the negotiating table and for the Joint Finance Committee to not meet indicates to me that within the Republican caucus, they don't agree, and that there is some that are feeling the pressure and may want to actually invest in childcare. And so instead of having a hearing that didn't go specifically the way they wanted, not knowing what the votes were, they decided to cancel. And so that tells me that we all need to continue contacting our elected representatives. Programs, if you're closing, which again, that breaks my heart, but I get it. You don't want to go into debt any more than you already are. You need to be loud and say exactly why it is you're closing. And parents need to be contacting and they're letting their employers know too, like, hey, without this, I can't come to work and I'm going to need a raise, and get those employers to also contact those representatives.
Yeah, because we have spoken in the past about, a study showing just how many child care providers, perhaps 1 in 4, would close their doors if state support for all these centers ends in June. And that was a survey of child care providers commissioned by the Department of Children and Families. It was produced by the Institute for the Research on Poverty at UW-Madison. So, I mean, These are the actual voices of people who can either be part of the solution or things can go south real quick if a lot of these places close their door. It's not about a profit margin, Corinne. It's about survivability.
Oh, absolutely. And for those who think that we were okay before COVID, we weren't. We were struggling. We were always relying on women with young children who are desperate enough to either open their family childcare or go work for a group center. And, so that their child is around other children and they can earn a little bit of income, and then we leave. And so we've always had this revolving door, and it needs to stop. It's hurting our children. It's hurting our families. It's hurting our communities.
Corinne Hendrickson is a family child care provider in the New Glarus area. Chris Hambuck-Boyle gets on Facebook to say, thank you, Corinne, for your knowledgeable, persistent, and caring advocacy for children. You and Brooke are greatly appreciated. She connects the dots for children, families, businesses, and public schools. I couldn't agree more. Corinne, thank you so much on short notice for taking time and commenting on the governor's comments. We really appreciate it. All right, there we go. Corinne Hendrickson. A little bit of a delay on that, but we definitely got the message through loud and clear. And that was the important part here, is that advocacy works. It doesn't always work right away. It doesn't work every time, but it's in that category of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if you don't want to watch child care centers go out of business left and right, you look for ways to support them in a way that is good for the state economy. A local update is next for some of you, and then in our next hour, we'll be together after the 8 o'clock news to talk to Chad Holmes, and then at 8:30, Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area. Live from Lake Wissota, I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
You say you can't get enough Todd Alba, and who can ever get enough Todd Alba? Well, he's going to be part of Matt and Air on Air coming up at 9:30. He and I alternate on Tuesdays at 9:30, appearing with Jane and Greg. So you can catch Todd on Jane and Greg's show today at 9:30. And then on Todd's show, about 3:30 today, Alex Medorsky of the Nature Conservancy will be talking about the Nels Nolson Stewardship Program to conserve land in Wisconsin and prevent overdevelopment. Let's continue the conversation here about childcare for a moment. And we get a follow-up text from Tim in Wales who says, thank you. I had no idea how the program works. I don't think the majority do. I think if more people knew how the program works, it would have more support, how they get the funds, how the funds can be used, how they are tracked. Do all families get the use of the funds, or is it set by income? And the short answer to that is that this is assistance for the providers. Here's an interesting way to think about it. And if we hadn't had a bit of a technical delay, I would have asked Corinne about this directly. But look at it this way. State aid goes to fund our education, our K through 12 public schools. Well, and now voucher schools to a very high price tag as well. But we pay taxes. The taxes go in part to the education of our children from kindergarten through 12th grade. And then there's also state support for technical colleges, the UW system, and more. What we're doing is evolving the system to say education doesn't start on the first day of kindergarten. If you've got quality childcare that allows parents to be in the workforce if they choose to, and you're educating those kids in a safe environment, then why wouldn't some of our tax dollars go there instead to the providers so that they can keep prices reasonable for the parents? Think of it as, the parents paying the child care center is much like we pay property taxes for our part of K through 12 education. So here's where I think you can get Republicans interested in this. What if the alternative to quality child care centers was expanding public education, public schools, what conservatives like to call government schools? Well, we don't have that for child care right now. But if we did, if we started instead of K-12 it was, say, birth to 12 or something like that, and you went to, the local elementary school for your childcare and your state tax dollars went there, that would be one way to go, but conservatives wouldn't like that. What would they say? They'd say the private sector should do this. The marketplace should be doing this. Well, that's what we have right now. So if you don't want every, public school in the childcare business, then you should want the private sector. You should want these parents, these community members who want to care for our children and who aren't part of a government system, but support them with our tax dollars so that our kids are getting good quality care, safety, education from the time they're very small until the time that they're out there in the workforce. And so simply expanding the model that says we together are going to care for our children, all of our children, and make sure that they have the best learning environment possible. That's good economic sense. So that's going to appeal to the pro-business conservatives in Republican caucuses. Now, unfortunately, there is a real divide in there. In that room, you'll have your pro-business conservatives, but you'll also have your social conservatives who will say, well, this just, encourages all women usually to abandon their kids in childcare so that they can go work and they shouldn't be so selfish and they should stay home with the kids. Well, that's a decision that you can make. That's a mindset that you can have. But as an elected official, in terms of what's good for all families in Wisconsin, what's good for the economy writ large, you're going to have to take a look at this issue and see if your social conservative policies are the kinds of things that you can impose on everybody else in the state, the kind of things you can impose on the state economy. Or do you merely state your case and say, this is what we'd like to do. Let's find the things that encourage at least one parent to stay home. Okay. Now we're talking about nutrition assistance. Now we're talking about health care. Now we're talking about affordable taxes for the middle class, not just for the highest tax brackets. There are so many ways to be pro-family and fiscally conservative and even socially conservative that don't cross some kind of a line of dictating how many kids you can have or have to have. It brings us back to that Sean Duffy piece from the New York Times yesterday, is you can encourage big families if you want, but if as a government, you're not willing to provide ways that make a large family an attractive outcome for a couple, then those are just empty words that you're saying. So take our tax dollars and do the best you can with them from cradle to grave, whether it's good child care, affordable schools, or making sure you don't take away people's Medicaid when they're disabled or their Medicare when they're finally ready to retire. That's really all we want, is a well-rounded budget, both at the federal level and at the state level. And that involves much more than tax credits or red tape, And the red tape one really gets to me, because we hear that all the time. Oh, we got to get rid of the red tape for the business community. We've got to get rid of the red tape for the business community. But look what they're doing with Medicaid. How are they going to cut? They say, well, we're not cutting. We're just making sure that only eligible people get it through all these additional work requirements, all these reporting requirements. In other words, all this red tape. Similarly, they may come back and say, you know what? We're going to put a whole bunch of money into child care accounts, but we're going to put so much red tape into it, like reporting requirements and other benchmarks, that many daycare providers decide not to take advantage of it because it's not worth all the hassle. The people that tell you that they're against deregulation and red tape sure know how to use it when they want to for their own partisan purposes. So we'll follow how this goes with the state budget debate as it continues to evolve in Madison. Coming up after the 8 o'clock news, we'll be talking to Chad Holmes from 98.9 WXEO and Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's political editor and founder of the Recombobulation Area. That's all coming up next on this Tuesday morning, powered by Up North News, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.